If you're a contractor and you've ever lost a dispute, eaten a cost you shouldn't have, or had a client claim you never told them something, I can tell you with almost certainty why it happened. You didn't document it and it cost you. Stick around because in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to fix that. What's going on, everyone? My name is Joel Lipsky, construction business owner, advocate, and educator. I spent the last 20 years in the construction industry, on the job site and in the trenches, building companies, leading teams, and learning lessons the only way it's earned in this industry, through experience. I'm here to share tips, tricks, and other lessons I've learned straight from the job site that allowed me to run my construction company successfully. Not just how to build better projects, but how to run a better business. If you're a construction leader ready to operate with clarity instead of chaos, you're in the right place. Like, share, subscribe. Let's build something together. Let me start with the truth nobody wants to say out loud. Most contractors who get burned on jobs, disputes with clients, unpaid change orders, subcontractor claims, didn't lose because of bad luck. They lost because they had no paper trail. I've been there. Early in my career, I had a $40,000 dispute with a client over scope. We did the work. My guys were on the job site, but I had nothing in writing. No signed change order, no email confirmation, no daily report. He said I never got approval. I said I did. It was my word against his. And in construction, when it's your word against the client's who has an attorney, you're certainly going to lose. That lesson cost me 40 grand. And I never forgot it. That was the day I became obsessed with documentation, because here's what I've come to understand after 20 years in the industry. Documentation is not paperwork. Documentation is protection and risk management. It protects your money. It protects your reputation. It protects your company from the people who will try to take advantage of you. And trust me, they exist on every level in this industry. And yet, most contractors treat documentation like it's an afterthought. It's the last thing they do, if they do it at all. Today, I'm going to show you why that's a mistake and exactly how to fix it. Before we get into the system, let's talk about why this is such a widespread problem. Reason number one, they were never taught to do it. If you come up through the trades the way most of us did, working for someone, learning the craft, nobody sat down and said, here's how to document your job. You learned how to pour concrete, pull wire, run pipe, but nobody taught you how to run a business. Reason two, they think it slows them down. I hear all the time, Joel, I'm just too busy to write everything down. I don't have time to get the documentation. Okay, you're too busy now. Wait until you're in a dispute with a client and you're scrambling through your text messages trying to prove your case. Now you're really slowing down. Reason three, they rely on relationships. Well, I've worked with this guy for 10 years. We don't need a paperwork until you do. Business relationships change. People get fired, they retired, companies get sold. The handshake deal you had with the old owner means nothing to the new one. Here's the mindset shift I need you to make. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. Say that to yourself every day. Tattoo it to your brain, because in construction, memory is not evidence. Paper is evidence. Now let's get practical. There are 5 core documents every contractor, GC, or trade contractor needs on every single job, no exceptions. Number 1, the contract. And I know this sounds so obvious, but I'm still meeting contractors doing 6-figure projects on handshakes and emails. Your contract is your foundation. It defines scope, price, schedule, payment terms, and what happens when things change. If you don't have a solid contract, everything else falls apart. Invest in a good construction attorney to draft one. It's a one-time cost that will save you tens of thousands of dollars. But here's the part nobody talks about. You actually have to read the contract. And I mean really read it, because buried in the contract are your obligations, what you are required to communicate, how you are required to communicate it, and when. If you miss that, you have a major problem. You may have already forfeited your rights without even knowing it. Let me give you a real example of what I'm talking about. A lot of contracts have language that reads something like this. Upon discovery of an unknown condition, Contractor is required to notify the owner and the architect within 3 business days of discovery. 3 days. That's it. If you find something in the ground that nobody expected, buried utilities, contaminated soil, rock where there's supposed to be dirt, and you don't notify in writing within that window, you have essentially given up your right to be compensated for it. You ate it, you own it. The contract says so, and you didn't follow it. That was your mistake. That's just one example. There are several areas in a standard construction contract where your right for additional compensation or additional time is conditional upon you giving proper written notice to the parties within a defined time frame. Miss that window and your right is gone. Doesn't matter how legitimate your claim is, doesn't matter how much money you spent, the clock ran out and you are out of luck. Read your contract, understand it, and if you don't understand a clause, ask an attorney. Highlight every section that has a notification requirement and build a checklist from it, because documentation only protects you if you're documenting the right things to the right people at the right time. The contract tells you exactly what that looks like. Let's talk about change orders. This is where most contractors leave money on the table or lose money they already earned. Every single change to the original scope needs a signed change order before the work starts, not after, before. I don't care if the client says, just do it and I'll sign it later. Later doesn't exist in construction. If you touch that scope without a signed change order, you just donated your labor and your materials. Now, I want to break change orders into 2 specific categories because they are not all the same, and treating them like they are is a mistake that will cost you. The first one is change orders that affect pricing. This is the one most contractors at least try to manage. Added scope that costs more money. Owner wants to upgrade the finishes. They want to add a room. The drawings were wrong, and you're doing more work than you originally bid. Every one of those situations requires a change order with a dollar amount that the client signs before you move forward. Your change order needs to be clear. What changed, what it costs, broken down labor, material, markup, insurance, whatever your format is, be consistent. And it needs signatures. An email that says, looks good, go ahead, is better than nothing, but a signed change order is what holds up in a dispute, not an email. Do not rely on verbal approvals. Don't rely on text messages. Get the damn signature. And here's what I've learned the hard way. Small change orders matter, not just big ones. Contractors let the small stuff slide, a few $100s here, a few hours there. By the end of the job, you've given away thousands of dollars of work because you thought it wasn't worth the conversation. It's always worth the conversation. Every change, every time. The second change order is one that affects schedule. And this is the one contractors almost never manage. And it may be even more important than the pricing change order because time in construction is money. And when the schedule changes because of owner decisions, design issues, delayed approvals, late deliverables, and you don't document it, you absorb the cost every time. Here's how it plays out. The project was supposed to finish in 6 months. It runs 9 months because the owner took 3 weeks to pick out finishes, the engineer was slow on responses, and there were 2 scope additions that pushed your crew into a different season. None of this was your fault. But if you didn't document it with time impact change orders, you have no basis for a delay claim. You're just a contractor who was late on the job. A schedule change order documents the delay. What caused it? Who caused it? How many days it adds to the schedule? It gets signed just like a pricing change order, and it protects you from damages, potentially even liquidated or consequential damages. It supports time extension requests, and it creates a clear paper trail showing the project ran long because of decisions that they made, not you. Most contractors I talk to have never issued a scheduled change order in their career. They just eat the time. Start doing it. Track every single delay. Document who owns it. It will change how your clients behave and how your projects finish. And I want to be crystal clear about one thing when it comes to change orders, both pricing and schedule. Do not move ahead with any additional work or scope changes unless both parties have fully approved it in writing. I don't care how good your relationship is. I don't care if the owner is standing right next to you on the job site telling you to go ahead. If you don't have a signed change order, you do not have an agreement. Moving ahead without a signed change order is typically a direct violation of your contract. You are putting yourself and your company at serious risk for not being reimbursed for that work, period. The contract protects both parties, but only if you follow it. Bypass it, and you've handed over the other side a weapon to use against you later. So let's talk about daily logs. A daily log is a record of what happened on the job site every day. Manpower on the job site, weather conditions, work performed, delays encountered, all the deliveries that were received or missed, inspections, visitors. It takes 10 minutes a day and has saved me from disputes more times than I can count. When a client says your crew wasn't on site that week, I pull my logs, end of conversation. But here's where I see contractors sell themselves short. They fill out the daily log in 2 minutes and call it done. Poured concrete. That's it? That's the whole entry? That's not a daily log. That's a waste of time. Your daily report needs to be detailed, not just poured concrete. How much concrete? 3 yards? 300 yards? Where on the job site was it placed? What delivery company was it? Was there a third-party inspector on site running slump tests? What was the company name? What was the inspector's name? Was the pour delayed because of weather? Did material show up late? What time did the truck arrive? What was the mix design used? All of that goes in to the log. The more detailed, the better. I know that sounds like a lot more work, but think about it from a dispute perspective. 6 months from now, 6 years from now, when someone questions that pour, whether the concrete was actually placed correctly, whether that inspector was there, whether the mix was right, the weather was good, your detailed daily log is your answer. A 2-minute entry gives you nothing to work with. A thorough entry gives you everything. Daily reports should not take you 2 minutes to complete. They should take whatever time is necessary to accurately capture the day. If your team is rushing through them, they are not protecting you. They are just checking a box. And that's not documentation. That's an illusion of documentation. So let's talk about RFIs and submittals. An RFI stands for Request for Information. Anytime that you're waiting on an answer from a designer, engineer, or an owner, put it in writing, log it, date it, track the response. If a project is delayed because you're waiting on answers, you have documentation to support a time extension or a delay claim. If you didn't log it, you have nothing. Submittals work the same way. Shop drawings, product data, samples. Every submittal needs to be tracked. When was it submitted? Who received it? When was it returned? Was it approved, approved with comments, or rejected? That log is your paper trail for every design decision that was reviewed and approved before the work was installed. Here's something that often gets missed, and it causes a lot of problems downstream. Once an RFI or submittal comes back approved, you need to document it that it was sent and distributed to the relevant subcontractors. That step is just as important as getting the approval itself. Think about what happens when you don't track distribution. Your mechanical sub installs equipment based on the original drawings and scope because no one sent them the approved submittal with the revised dimensions. Now there's a conflict in the field, work has to be redone, and everyone is pointing fingers. The approved information existed, it just never got to the right person. Track who received it and when. That one step eliminates a significant amount of subcontractor miscommunication and protects you from being held responsible for their errors when the real issue was a breakdown in information flow. So let's talk about photo documentation. Take photos, a lot of them. I'm going to break this into 3 categories because they serve different purposes, and I want you to treat each one seriously. The first one is pre-construction photos. At Lipsky Construction, we are super aggressive about pre-construction photos. And I mean aggressive. Before we touch anything, before a single tool comes off the truck, we are documenting the existing conditions of that site in full detail. The work area, yes, but also the parking lot, the elevator, the stairwells, the lobby, the corridors that we're going to use for staging the material and moving, every surface we're going to pass through or work near. In some cases, there are hundreds of photos taken before we even step foot on that active job site. To an outsider, that might sound excessive, To me, it sounds like protection. I can tell you from experience, those pre-construction photos have helped me several times when I was falsely accused of causing damage during construction. The crack in the elevator door frame was there before we even showed up. The elevator railing was already bent. I have the photos with timestamps to prove it. Without those photos, it's my word against the owners. And we already talked about how that usually ends bad for me. The second one is progress photos. Progress photos should be taken every single day on the job, period. Not once a week, certainly not once a month, not when something interesting has happened, every day. Wide angle shots that capture the overall status of the work area, close up shots that document specific conditions, installed work, connections, penetrations, and anything that will eventually get covered up. At a minimum, I'm always looking for 50 photos a day. And on a busy day, that number should go even higher. When I was a site superintendent, I had a habit that a lot of people thought was overkill. I would take a photo of my job trailer door when I arrived in the morning and another photo of the door when I left for the day. Timestamp photos documenting exactly when I got to the job site that day and exactly the time I left for the day. Zero ambiguity, end of story. Think of it this way. If a daily report tells the story, then progress photos are the evidence that proves every chapter. They work together. Your written log says what happened. Your photos show it actually happening. Together, they are nearly impossible to dispute. And the last group is your final completion photos. For the love of God, document how you left the job before you handed it over to the owner. I cannot stress this enough. When your work is complete, before you walk off the job site for the last time, photograph everything, every surface, every system, every room. And I think Procore even lets you do videos now. The finished product in its entirety, you want to have documented because damages get claimed after the fact all the time. Sometimes it's the owner looking to reduce their final payment. Sometimes the owner brings their own contractors in after you, furniture installers, audiovisual crews, landscapers, and those contractors damage your work. Sometimes it's just opportunistic. Whatever the reason, there are numerous ways damage gets blamed on the last contractor standing. Don't let this be you. Final completion photos remove all of that. They show exactly what condition you left the project in, dated and time-stamped. If a scratch shows up in the flooring 2 weeks after your crew left, you have documentation showing the floor was pristine when you handed it over. That's how you protect your final payment and your reputation. These 5 documents, if you're using them all the time, consistently on every job, you are already operating at a higher level than 80% of the contractors in the industry. That's not an exaggeration. So having the documents is step 1, but having a system to manage them is step 2. Because here's the problem. Most contractors who do document don't organize it. It's spread across text messages, emails, a random phone number, maybe your desktop, maybe a notebook in the truck. That's not a system. That's a pile of junk. Your documentation system needs 3 things: a place, a process, and a person. A place, a centralized cloud storage, one platform, one folder structure, every project. Every document goes in the right place every time, not on someone's personal phone, not buried in an email chain, in the system. There are several options out there: Google Drive, Dropbox, SharePoint. They all work to varying degrees, but at Lipsky Construction, we use Procore. And I want to talk about why, because it goes beyond just having a place to store files. Procore is built specifically for the construction industry. It's not a generic file storage system that we're adapting to fit our needs. It was designed to manage RFIs, submittals, daily logs, change orders, drawings, and photos all in one place. Everything is connected. When an RFI gets answered, it links back to the drawing. When a change order gets approved, it gets tied to the budget. When the system is built around the workflow, it actually does operate. But here's the piece that matters most from a documentation standpoint. Procore gives us a permanent access to every project we ever run through, every time, forever. A project from 5 years ago, I can pull it up right now. Every daily log, every photo, every RFI response, every signed change order. It's all there. That kind of long-term accessibility is not just convenient, it's a safeguard. Disputes and claims don't always surface immediately. Sometimes they come up years later. When they do, we have everything right where they need to be in our system. I'm not telling you that Procore is the only answer. What I am telling you is that you need something purpose-built, something cloud-based, and something that gives you permanent access to your project history. Whatever platform that you choose, commit to it and use it on every single job. Consistency is what makes the system work. So a process is a documented workflow for how documents get created, reviewed, approved, and stored. When is the daily log submitted? Who reviews change orders before they're signed? Who uploads photos and when? Write it all down. Make a standard operating procedure. If it's not a process, it's just someone's personal habit. And personal habits disappear when that person leaves. And make sure you have a person. We need someone who actually is going to take full accountability and ownership over documentation. On larger projects, that's likely going to be your project coordinator or your project manager. On smaller projects, it might be your virtual assistant, but someone needs to be held accountable to making sure it actually happens. Here's something nobody talks about when it comes to documentation, and it's probably the most important reason of all. At the end of the day, if the dispute goes sideways, you're likely dealing with an attorney that has limited construction experience, if any. They don't understand RFI, change orders, or daily logs. They don't even understand what a submittal is. But what they do know is how to work a room, how to create confusion, and how to take a murky situation and twist it in their client's favor. And you need to understand something about that attorney. They are not there in the room to find the truth. They are there for one reason, to get the best outcome for their client. That's their job. That's what they're paid to do. So here's the reality. The more confusing your situation is, the more rope you hand them. The more gaps in your documentation, the more room they have to manipulate, twist, and reframe narrative. It's so true. But here's the flip side. The more you document and the more simply you document, the more you control that narrative. A clear daily log, dated, signed, and uploaded, a change order signed by both parties before the work started, an RFI showing that you asked a question but they never responded for 3 weeks, that's not just paperwork. That's your story. That's your ammunition in war. And when your story is simple, clear, and documented, there's not a lot a lawyer can do to help their client. Documentation doesn't just protect you in the dispute, it controls the dispute before it even starts. I want to close with something most people don't talk about when it comes to documentation. And that's what it signals to your team, to your clients, and to your subs. When you document properly, you are telling everyone around you, I run a professional operation. I hold people accountable and I protect my company. I've noticed something over 20 years. The best general contractors I've worked with, the ones with the tightest operations, the cleanest projects, and the highest margins, they all document obsessively. And it's not a coincidence. Documentation is a discipline, and discipline shows up everywhere in a company. When your team sees you documenting, they document. When your project manager knows that every RFI gets logged, they will log it. Culture flows from the top down. If the owner doesn't value it, nobody else will. And from a client perspective, when you show up to a meeting with organized documentation, clear records, and a paper trail, you become the most credible person in the room. You're not defensive. You're not scrambling. You have the receipts. You're well prepared. That's a competitive advantage. In a market where most contractors can't find a document from 3 weeks ago, being organized is a differentiator. So let's bring this home. If you're watching this and you know that your documentation is weak, start with just one thing. Pick one of the 5 documents and commit to doing it on every single job for the next 30 days. Just pick one. Build the habit, then add the next one. You don't build a documentation system overnight. You build it one document at a time, one job at a time. And if you're sitting there thinking, I get it, Joel, but I don't have time to manage all this, that's exactly why I built virtual construction assistants. Because documentation takes time, and time is your most valuable resource. A trained virtual coordinator can manage your daily logs, your RFI tracker, your change order log, all of it, so you can stay focused on running your business. Link is in the description. Check it out. If you got value from this video, like it, share it with another contractor who needs to hear this, and subscribe if you're serious about growing your construction company. We're just getting started.